Hi, I'm Lauren Lascelles with ACTE, and this is the new board orientation. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope that we have a great time together. Now, as a board member, you basically get to wear 3 hats. It couldn't be just easy, straightforward now, couldn't it? You serve as a board member, as a liaison for your region or your division, and then also as a chair of your policy committee. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go through those 3 aspects of your role so that you fully understand what's involved in each of those positions. The first one we'll talk about is your role as a board member. And talk about our governance structure. A lot of people don't know how complicated an organization ACTE actually is. So we'll go over that really quickly. The way we're structured is we have a board of directors, and we also have the Assembly of Delegates. Now, if you skip over a little bit to the next slide, 2, you'll see that our board is made up of 11 divisions and 5 regions, and each of those regions and divisions have their own policy committee. Vice presidents from the divisions and the regions make up our board of directors, plus 3 officers. These are our presidents. These are people who have served on the board in the past who decided they would like to serve again for another 3-year term. They cycle through president-elect, president, and past president. So in total, we have 19 people on our board. We used to have more, however, we had some changes with our divisions along the way, and one of the divisions did not meet our membership requirements, so they actually fell off of our board. The second aspect of our policymaking structure is our Assembly of Delegates. Each affiliated state association, not chapter, state association, receives a certain number of delegates to participate in this annual meeting that happens at Vision. And at this meeting, they talk about changes to the bylaws, relevant issues that are coming up, resolutions, business matters such as that. So for the bylaws, those can only be changed by our Assembly of Delegates. The board policy and procedures manual can only be changed by the board. So the way it works is it's a nice dynamic where we have a check and a balance system. The board doesn't have power over the bylaws. The members do through their state associations and the Assembly of Delegates. By the same token, the board has control over the board policy and procedures manual, which is a little more specific and provides more detail that the bylaws don't provide, so that they can guide and direct the organization as need be. Do you all have any questions about that overall structure? Okay, great, we'll keep going. We also are divided in 2 separate sections, regions and divisions. Our regions represent our state associations. And what we realized just recently actually was that the regions came about in the 1970s because the board at the time and the organization at the time felt that the voice of the states wasn't being represented fully. So the regions are a great way for us to be able to represent all of our state associations and not just our individual divisions, but issues that are going on in our states. Because as I'm sure you're aware, things happening in Illinois are completely different than things that are going on in Maine. But then again, maybe there is some commonality. So it's a way for us to make sure we're really getting to the member, understanding what the member's context is so we can better serve their needs. The regions have regional conferences. That's their hallmark event. And those occur once a year. There's usually a host state, and Kate has developed a great how-to guide for the regions about how that works. So the second way we're organized is through our divisions. Now, as I mentioned briefly before, we had a change. It used to be that divisions with 1,000 members or more, they were eligible to have a seat on the board. However, we changed that a few years ago to 750 members because our organization was decreasing in size slightly. We wanted to be sure that we still had the representation that we needed for our divisions. And that's when we lost one along the way, unfortunately. But our divisions make up those special interest groups within our organization. So family consumer sciences, marketing, trade and industrial. There's so much richness to our organization in terms of the specific discipline areas. The divisions really highlight that for us and allow us to celebrate that. Now for the divisions, there's not a division conference, but at Vision, the divisions help us plan programming that's specific to the needs of the division. So maybe you have a STEM session that you think would be really excellent to do for, ETAD or something like that. We would look to you to help us find that contact, help us with those speakers. Any ideas that you all have that would be helpful to us, we'd really appreciate. So that's how our divisions work. Now, for both the regions and the divisions, there's a policy committee, and we'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about your role as the chair of the policy committee. But that's how our organization is structured. Board, assembly of delegates, then within the board, regions and divisions that represent our broader membership. Any questions? Okay, great. Let's talk about the role of the board itself. We had a lot of questions about what is the role of the board, and I think that it's a great thing to start out with and to really define clearly up front so that there's not confusion. I know with its different settings, different boards, you can have a board that's extremely in the details, so you could, like a school board or something like that, or you can have a board that's more at the 10,000 foot level. So I want to make sure that we each bring our own context to the table, that we're talking about the same thing. So the role of this board is to provide oversight and direction. And one of my favorite representations of this is that leadership is steering the boat, where we're going, and management is actually rowing. And for us here at ACTE, the board is the one that steers us. So we're looking for you to provide us with that overall direction setting. Where should we be going? What should our vision statement be? What should we be pursuing this next fiscal year? How should we be spending our budgeted funds? Those are the kinds of questions that we're looking to you to help us to answer. So it's less about, well, how exactly are we going to send out this e-blast, and what are steps 1, 2, 3 of how we're going to do that? That's what staff is here to do. So don't feel like you need to get bogged down into, how am I going to send this e-blast? We have a very talented person who does that for us, and she'll give you the easy steps that we need to get that done. However, what we're really looking for you all to provide us with is that overall direction, because you all provide the insight that we don't have as staff. As staff, we have association management expertise. What we don't have is CTE expertise. You guys are in the field every single day. You all are the ones who are reaching out to the students. You are the ones who are talking to policymakers at a local grassroots level. We need your voice and your perspective in order to lead this organization in the way that it should. So we look to you to approve outcomes. We look to you to make sure that we're achieving those outcomes, and we do that through a number of different steps. We have something right now called the Preferred Future, which acts as our strategic planning document. We're looking to revamp that a little bit, but you'll see that in your board materials. We also have something called the action items. If during the board meeting you all have a question or something like that, we record it and then we report back to you what the answer is. So if we don't know in the middle of the meeting, you can still find out what the answer is. So you can help us make sure that we're achieving the goals we need to be doing, and also that we're using our resources effectively and efficiently. There's a great piece that's included in those packets that you all received in March called A Guide for Board Members. It was written by our lawyer. It's excellent. If you haven't had a chance to look it over, I encourage you to look it over. It goes over some of these things, but also talks about responsibilities, legal things like that, etc. One of the things that we actually just started recently, based on some previous board discussion and input we had from previous orientations, was the development of a board code of conduct, which you all will be signing later today with the rest of the board, but it basically just talks about expectations as a board member. So if you don't show up to multiple board meetings, that's obviously a problem. Things like that. We'll go over that during the board meeting itself, so I won't belabor that too much here. But again, rather have the responsibilities and expectations stated up front than have frustration or issues later. Another thing that is important for you all to be aware of is our bylaws and our board policy manual. The bylaws, you'll be given a copy of that during the board meeting. If you haven't had a chance and you're stuck in an airport, give it a whirl. That's what I'm focusing on in my role now, is the governance issues and the bylaws. We're trying to clean them up a little bit, but make sure you understand those and are comfortable with those. It's pretty straightforward. We also have our board policy and procedures manual. This is a very lengthy document. It's about 75 plus pages, I think, right now, but it records all of our specific procedures about elections or state associations or committees, things like that, that the board has done in the past. Any questions at this point? Okay, I'm going to keep going. All right, we have 3 board meetings a year. We have July, the one at conference, our vision meeting, and we also have one at our national policy seminar. Typically, these are a day and a half to 2-day meetings. We've been shortening them recently, so it might even be 2 half days. For July, as you have noticed, we've shifted the schedule so that it's around the 4th of July. Typically, it's the weekend immediately after the 4th of July, but because this year, 4th of July was basically the weekend, we wanted you to actually be able to enjoy 4th of July. So, yes, we appreciated it too. And we have it immediately after 4th of July typically. So we'll be sending out some information about that. And we have a whole list of meeting dates as well, so that you guys can start planning your calendar. And then for our National Policy Seminar, like Vision, it's held before the start of the event. So we typically do that Saturday, Sunday before National Policy Seminar starts. And again, we try to compress our meetings so that we make the most of your time and use it efficiently. So there might be, changes over the next 3 years, but generally that's what we do. Does that make sense? In addition to those 3 board meetings, we have an executive committee. Our executive committee is different than executive sessions. I know there's been some confusion over that in the past. Some people aren't familiar with that, how that works. But the executive committee essentially acts in between the board meetings on behalf of the board if there's any pertinent issues that are coming up that can't wait for the board meeting. So typically they take the first look at our audit. They take our first look at our budget so that we can make sure we're on the right track before we present it to the board for full approval. So things like that is what the executive committee does. That's different than executive sessions. Executive sessions are for the whole entire board to review the executive director primarily, and to also talk about any very sensitive board issues that might be going on. So sometimes you'll have a 5-minute executive session. Sometimes it might last a lot longer. I know with our executive director interviews that we had the previous year, they met an executive session for several hours, just because of the nature of the situation at that time. So there's a difference between those two functions. So when you hear somebody say, oh, we need to go into executive session, that's you. You're included in that. You participate in that. And if you're interested, the executive committee is made up of our 3 presidents, finance chair, and representative from the regions and from the divisions. So if you're interested later down the road in serving in that role, representing the regions as a whole or representing the divisions as a whole, you can run for that and apply for that. There's not a set application process, but what does happen during our MPS meeting, we send out a call to ask for anybody that's interested, and that's decided upon at that time. The finance chair is decided upon in April. It's actually due on tax day, April 15th. So if you're interested in that, there is an application for that involved. And that serves a 1-year term. And you are supported to come to meetings before these 3 board meetings, before the July Vision and MPS board meeting. Usually it's half day, 1 day max. And then there's a couple of WebEx meetings that we've been doing. We've shifted away from travel. It's hard to travel, takes a lot of time, energy, funds, exactly. So we're trying to be good stewards of our finances. There's a call in October typically, as well as one in June. So that's how that works. But as just a board member, if you're not on the executive committee, July, Vision, MPS. Now, I will go ahead and talk about this really quickly before we go on. For July Vision and NPS, as you know with Kate, what she did this time, she'll send you an email. She'll say, hey guys, here's the dates for travel. She'll take care of your hotel. If you need help with your travel, she's more than happy to do that. If you want to get the rewards points on your credit card, that's fine. Just let us know when you're coming in and you can be reimbursed for that. And we'll talk about that reimbursement process in a second. Let's talk about what's going to actually happen. So Kate sent you this humongous board book, and you're probably looking at it thinking, what have I gotten myself into? I have to read all this. Thankfully, there's a method to the madness, and there's a usual rhythm that we have for each of our meetings. One of the things that we always have every meeting is what we call a breakout session. Now, this is where you're going to meet with just your division compatriots or just your region compatriots, and you're going to talk about issues that are pertinent just to you in that individual group. So it wouldn't make sense for the divisions to be talking about region conferences. They are not involved in planning that or anything like that. It wouldn't really make sense, maybe, for the regions to be talking about division conference planning for vision. So what we do is we break the 2 groups up and talk about your specific issues in small groups, and then reconvene during the board meeting and talk about a quick report with everyone. So that way we can make the most of your time and energy and hopefully result in some productive discussion for you. Those are determined prior to the meeting. If you have something you want to talk about and you just thought about it, that's great. You can definitely bring it up during new business during the breakout sessions themselves. We also always approve our agenda and our consent agenda. If there's something in the consent agenda that you would like to pull out and actually discuss, be sure to do that before the agenda is approved. Some people aren't familiar with what a consent agenda is. A consent agenda is essentially a quick way for us to approve a bunch of reports all at once, rather than having to go through each one individually. Okay, approve the award winners. Okay, approve this task force report. Anything that's routine business that doesn't necessarily require discussion, we put in the consent agenda so that it can all be approved at one time and make the most of our time. So if there's something in there that you see that you actually want to talk about, be sure to pull it out during the approval of the agenda section. There might also be some items that the executive committee wants to add at that time, so they might amend the agenda so that they could add in anything that they've just recently talked about during their meetings. We've already talked about the executive session a little bit, but just a little more detail. Those are led by the immediate past president. So this year, that would be Doug Major. And again, this is the time where you all are alone. Only board members are allowed. Staff is not allowed to be present. Board liaisons are not to be present, just board. That's when you evaluate the executive director and you talk about any goals or things that you want to do for the upcoming fiscal year. The wonderful packet that Kate made you, there's a little deadline calendar. So you have a basic idea of, oh, I need to make sure that I turn in my board report. Or, oh, I need to be thinking about travel for vision. Things like that. Hopefully this will help you to plan your calendar, get an idea of sort of what the rhythm is, what expectations are. We found that this has been really helpful the past few years when we've been using this. A couple of things that are typical that you'll see 4 to 6 weeks prior to a meeting, more on the 6-week side. Kate will send you that wonderful email telling you, hey, it's time to book your travel. Let's start thinking about that. So that'll be coming prior to a meeting. Your board reports will be due about a month before the meeting. We'll talk about the reports in a little bit. Our board election, as you all well know, is held in conjunction with Vision. That's the Friday of Vision is when the election occurs, and our nominations are always due June 15th. Something I do want to alert you to, a change this previous year. Now we require, if you want to ever serve as a president of our organization, you have to serve on the board at least 1 year. So if that's something that you may be interested in later down the road, we would love to have you all on board serving as our president one day. So if that's something that you're interested in, just keep that in mind. Our meeting manager will be sending information about our vision meeting forms. So if you want to have a business meeting, you want to have a policy committee meeting, you want to do a reception.
I think we completed those.
Right. Great. Yeah, you might need to check. So those meeting forms, staff will be sending out those deadlines. Sounds like he's already on it. And then the budget, that again, that just happened as well. Those timelines come up too. Logistics. So you all will be receiving information from Cora about budgeting. I think it's usually in March. Does that sound right?
Probably, because we worked on ours. It was like right after MPS, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
March, April. So if you have any questions, Cora is a great resource for you. Need some historical information or have questions about your different accounts. She's a great resource. Okay. As you know, Kate sends out this wonderful email to you, and she says, hey guys, it's time to start thinking about the board meeting. And she takes care of the hard stuff. On page 17 of your packet, there's a little summary about this. Essentially, I'll just go through it really quickly. I don't need to read it necessarily. But again, air travel, you're welcome to make your own accommodations. If not, Kate can help you with that. We take care of your hotel room, so don't worry about having to figure out where you're going to stay, because we'll take care of that. I'll clue you in. Usually you all get pretty nice rooms at convention, or excuse me, at Vision. So we try to take really good care of you. If you ever find that you're getting billed for a hotel room, that should not be occurring, please let us know so that we can get that corrected. ACTE covers your expenses for your hotel and your travel. So if you have any questions, concerns about that, let us know. We have a per diem system that covers our food for you all. So we follow the federal government. Each city and state has its own specific rate that it uses. I believe for this year, it's all in the $71 range. I could be wrong, but it's broken out by meal. So each meal has its own maximum. And we'll talk about specifically how do you fill out the form in just a few minutes, but I did want to mention that. We do have to have receipts for anything over $25. So if you tip the bellman, we don't need a receipt for that. Obviously, there's no receipt for that. But if you go on a taxi, we need the receipt for that if it's over $25. Anything over $25, need a receipt.
The $25 like luggage expense, you would not need that receipt because it's exactly.
I would need it.
You still need it.
I need it. If it's exactly 25, I need it. If it's $24.99, I don't need it.
Gotcha.
If it's 25, I gotta have it.
Double check.
Yep. A couple of things that are on here. Some people have more experience using the metro or cabs than others. We've had some issues in the past. Be sure if you do take a cab that it's somebody that's labeled as a cab. Here in the DC area, there are some crazy people who just try to make some extra money on the side. So just buyer beware. Also for our board meetings, for this July meeting, it's so hot, oh my goodness, business casual, but for our other board meetings, business attire. And then you all know about the wonderful board book that Kate sends out that compiles all the information in one place, hopefully in an easy format that's easy for you to read and access and understand. Any questions about that?
so
Yes,
The board meeting tomorrow and Wednesday,
yes,
business casual then? Okay,
yeah.
all right.
So technically it's
Mhm.
business, but it's so hot. One thing I did want to point out, a couple years ago, we made this easy reference guide for you all about allowable expenses, page 29 in your binders. This is a great thing to look at if you're not sure, does this count, does this not count, can I pay for this, can I not pay for this? The report to the board. So some of you all have already been working with your predecessors on these. We have a template example provided for you all here. It's going to be the same template every single time. And what we're trying to do with these reports is just get the pulse. What's going on in your region or division? Tell us, not just what you've been doing, but what are the issues that are affecting T&I? What are the issues that are going on in Region 4? Help us understand so that we can have a discussion about any issues as a whole entire board about things that might be specific to you, as well as things that might be specific in a broader standpoint to CTE in general. The pieces that have to do with concerns for CTE and ACTE, these are really the meat of it for me personally. And what Kate will do is she will pull this information out and put it into a separate document so that we can see all of the concerns in one place. So that's really helpful. So please use this report as a way to communicate with us what's going on, what your thoughts are, what you guys have been active doing. We love to hear it, and we do read them. So please be sure to utilize that. One more thing. Another aspect of this report is the opportunity to add items for discussion. We do read this. So if you say that you want to talk about something, we will contact you and we will say, hey, Alex, you said you want to talk about this. What do you want to talk about it? And we might look to you to help us provide a report or something like that. Sometimes the issues that you might want to talk about, we already have on the agenda, so it's just a simple, oh, Alex, great, thanks for putting that on there. We actually got that on the agenda. Is there something specific you wanted to talk about? So we make sure we address whatever your concern is. Make sense? Cool. The financial forms. Now, Cora probably went over this a little bit with you at MPS, so I'm going to not belabor it too much, but I think it is important to at least go over briefly now that you're actually going to have to fill one out. All right, in your book it's 44. This form, this is blown up, this is a little exaggerated, but you will have one of these at your seats today, or excuse me, tomorrow during the board meeting. This is the form that you use for any kind of travel you go on anywhere. So if you are traveling, use this form. If you're going into the board meeting, use this form. If you're traveling, let's say you're going to one of your state's conferences, use this form. If you are traveling, this is the form that you use. You'll see there's different categories for different items, hotel, transportation, food. What we normally do is with the food, we fill in what the per diem amounts are. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible. So you don't have to think, oh, did we get lunch on Friday or did we not get lunch on Friday? We'll mark that on this form so it's really clear. Your travel for board members, or as board members to board meetings, comes out of a separate budget. It doesn't come out of your region budget. It doesn't come out of your division budget. Not me. Kate manages that budget. What we had happen in the past is people, very well-intentioned, will send us a form in an email. And they'll say, hey, I'm turning in my form. Can you go ahead and process this for me so I can get my check sooner? Makes perfect sense. But then what happens is there's no receipts. And we have to have receipts, remember, for $25. I gotta have physical receipts. So I gotta have receipts. And then what also was happening, people were submitting the same expense report multiple times. So it's just a logistical, administrative nightmare. So what we ask is paper. It's gotta be paper. Not just for the receipts, but just for our own sanity.
And that's for the board. That's not for policy committee members.
Even for policy
So they
committee
can just
members.
make a copy of their claim and be
Exactly.
fine.
Or they can email you the form and you can print it out.
Yeah.
But we gotta have those physical receipts. It has to be a physical, tangible thing that we
And a
have.
scanned copy of the
No
receipt.
PDFs.
I would take a scanned copy of a receipt over no receipt. So,
We'd rather have everything.
yes, if possible, originals. Let's go ahead and talk about this check request form because you're talking about it in terms of policy committee. So page 50 for you and Paul, for you all, this is a form you'll be using a lot. This is how you request a check for anything that you want to spend your money on. So let's say you're doing an award for TNI, or let's say you want to reimburse a policy committee member for coming to a meeting or something like that. Use this form. Anything other than your travel, you use this form. It's pretty straightforward. Pay to, etc., backup material, you'll need to sign it. You'll notice on this section there's an opportunity for you to write in the account. Now, this is something that I think Cora probably talked to you about, your operating accounts and your designated accounts. Be sure to use the coding so that we know when it arrives in the mail where you want it to be allocated. Because otherwise, we're going to contact you and say, hey, Dave, it looks like this is an award, but should it really be coded to your award line item? Let us know. Again, Anything over $25, we have to have a receipt. Now, for things like stipends for your policy committee, that's something we obviously don't have a receipt for because it's just a stipend. Indicate that clearly when you fill out this form. If there is a situation where you need to use your designated account, and I encourage you to use your designated accounts, be sure if it's over $250 to get a second approval from a policy committee member. So let's say Alex is giving John Gall a fantastic, handcrafted table. It's wonderful. It costs $251. He has to email his policy committee and have one of his policy committee members approve that expense if it's coming out of his designated fund. So that can be an email. That can be, hey Jeff, can you please write me an email back saying that you approve this? He does it, CC's Kate, done. It could also be your minutes. So let's say during your policy committee you approve to fund an extra $50 for every policy committee member because it was really expensive or something, I don't know. If it's in your minutes, it counts. So you could also send us your minutes. And you don't have to get an extra separate approval. Does that make sense? Okay. We have something called the dashboards.
Okay.
It's here on page 52 for you and Paul. Actually, we don't have an example. Yes, we do. It shows you just a one-page snippet of what in the world is going on with your region or division. It shows your funds, your funding. It also shows attendance numbers. It shows the date of your last policy manual update. This is something I care a lot about, and I will be emailing you all about later. It also says whether or not we have your policy committee roster on file. So what we're going to do is we're going to dig in our history and go with what we last have, and we might have to restart for you.
Okay.
But we have faced this before. We will handle it. No worries. Also, we look for your minutes. We'll be requesting your minutes. So this is a great piece that you'll be getting once a month so that you're aware of what's going on in your region
So
or
if it
division.
has no on here, that means I need to get those and send them.
Exactly. Yep. Another thing that we usually put on this document is whether or not there are updates that need to be made to your website. So let's say we go on your website and we noticed it hasn't been updated since 2009. No, God forbid. But still, if that did happen for some crazy reason, we'd say, hey, Tammy, don't know if you noticed, but all this information is old. What do you think about updating it? You know, how can we help you update it? The updating process is extremely easy. All you need to do is send any updates you want to make to Brian Jenkins, who handles our website for us, and he will do his magic and post it for you. So just send us the material, we'll update it. Okay. I also wanted to be sure you all were aware of some support that we offer for the regions and divisions in between meetings. So we have quarterly conference calls for the regions as well as the divisions. Think of it as your breakout session, but in between the board meetings. This is a great opportunity for you to talk to your fellow region vice presidents, your fellow division vice presidents about what they're doing, ideas about different things you can put in your newsletter, ideas about what are you doing for conference, what are you putting on your policy committee agenda, what kind of things are going on in your region or division. Again, we're trying to make it easy and share information with each other. And what we found is that sometimes maybe you're going to have a really great idea. Dave can use that in Region 1. Why can't he? That's actually how I think we started the newsletters. Somebody was doing a newsletter and it's like, oh, well, why can't we do newsletters? You have the template already set up. Why can't we use the template for our own? So It's all about sharing ideas, trying to encourage each other, help each other through your term. So use those quarterly conference calls. You'll be hearing from your region or division representative about that. That's Gina this year for the divisions and Chuck this year for the regions. Also, I wanted to be sure if you ever need to have a conference call for something, like your policy committee, we do have conference lines available for you to use, and we'll handle the billing side on the back end. But if you need a conference call line, we can help set that up for you. Just let Kate know. So that's the information about being a board member. Now let's talk about being a leader of your division or your region. The key for being the leader of your region or division is really communication. I honestly think that is the number one thing you can do. Make sure that your constituency knows you. We try to help with that with these videos that you all are doing with Celia. We try to help you all with that with the webpage, with the e-blast, newsletters, put your lovely pictures, on all these communications. But we want to make sure that our members know who you are, because you're really the face of that constituency group for us. Now, as a board member, you're representing your constituency, but you're also looking out for the broader interest of the organization. Now, I know that's been something that's been a little hard for some people to understand in the past, but as a board member, we're really looking for the health of the entire organization. We're looking out for the best interest of everyone, not just your own specific section. So I would encourage you to keep that in mind as you're serving as a board member, but also to put that hat on. So when you're thinking about what can I do to update my web page that would really bring some value to my constituency, we would love that. That would be fantastic. So if you think of, hey, I really need to put some more information on the website about skills or about apprenticeship or something like that. It's not on the website. That would be perfect. So if there's any resources, information, anything like that that you think would really benefit your constituency, that's the kind of stuff we're looking for. Because again, as staff members, we're great at association management, but we don't really know anything about CTE. We're not CTE experts. You guys are. So we're really looking to you all to help us provide that CTE content value to the members. And again, it's this communication piece. So being visible at our events, helping us update the webpage with information that's relevant and important. Sending e-blasts that might be helpful. So let's say there's some big event going on in marketing. That would be a great thing to highlight. Or let's say you hear through the grapevine there's some new STEM initiative coming down the pike. That would be something great to let your membership know about. It's all about communication, helping us provide value for the member. Another thing I did want to mention is committee vacancies. Kate also handles committee vacancies for us. She'll be sending you emails about that. Please, please, please fill them as soon as possible because it enables our committees to be able to function, and if we don't have representatives, they don't really work. So please help us. Another thing that we ask is keeping the end in mind. I once heard somebody say that the best hallmark of leadership is training your replacement. So be thinking, even now, you just started 7 days ago, but who is that person on your policy committee that you really think would be a great board member in the future? Who's that person that maybe is a committee member that you met at a luncheon or something that you think might be great to bring into the fold. Another thing that you all will learn about in more detail here shortly with the next presentation are e-blasts. These are those email messages that we send to the members. You have to approve every e-blast that goes out to your region or division. Joe Blow member can't just say, hey, I want to send out an email about my program. It has to go through you. You have to approve it. So keep that in mind. We might get a request from somebody. We'll send it to you and say, hey, is this something that we should actually be sending out? You can help us determine whether or not that is something you want to send out. Those are handled by Lourdes Jatico. Is that how you pronounce it? Jatico. I apologize, Lourdes. Lourdes Jatico. And she's fantastic. She will help you send those out. Newsletters. We talked about this briefly in terms of the process. You all usually, I recommend talking about these during your quarterly conference calls. You'll be talking about them in your breakout sessions. These are fantastic. The members love these things because it's specific to them about what they care about. It's about their specific issues. It's about their specific areas, the country. This is a great place for you to share information about Vision. Hey, these are my regional events that are happening at Vision. Please come, you're invited. Any awards that you're having. Did you guys know that so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so were the Region 4 award winners? Let's celebrate them. Any updates that you have going on, if you have some pressing issue that's going on in your region or division, if there's some news that's going on in terms of marketing or engineering, that's a great place to put it. And again, meetings, if you have a business meeting or something going on like that. Committees and task forces, I mentioned this briefly. We need your help in determining who the new leaders should be in our organization. And for me, the step one of getting involved in ACTE is our committees and our task forces. So this is a great place to plug those people in that you notice at your events or have expressed interest to you. Our fellows for our regions, this is a great place for the fellows to get involved. We actually request that they contact you to get on a committee. So be looking for that. Committees and task forces are really the work group of our organization. So if we have an issue that's coming up, the board will appoint a committee or a task force to investigate the issue in depth. These are crucial. This is how our organization functions. So I ask, please get in your committee appointments by July 1st. And I can tell you, I haven't asked Kate, but I know. Just based on 5 years of doing this, there are some of you all that have vacancies. And that's not cool. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You know, I wish your predecessor could have filled them in. Might not have happened. Please help us fill those as quickly as possible so that we can keep this vital aspect of our organization functioning. Any questions about your role as a leader of your division or your region? Okay, you guys are on it. The last thing we'll talk about is being the chair of your policy committee. How many of you all have served on a policy committee? All of you? Statewide though? Okay, great. With Linda? Okay, great. Perfect. Linda's got it. You all have a basic understanding then of how these are supposed to function. I could tell you though that your experience of a policy committee is drastically different than Dave's, drastically different than Paul's. So each one is unique in and of itself. And we find that across the board with even the way the policy and procedure manuals are set up. I just worked with the Bylaws committee to review all the region and all the division policy manuals to try to make a template for all of them to use, because what we found is each one's different. And each one says some different things, and there's a huge broad spectrum. That's great, and each one's individual and wonderful. It also makes things a little more difficult. So an answer to your question about your policy manual might be completely different than an answer to your question about a policy manual. So it really is a case-by-case basis. I encourage you to read your policy manual. I'm going to be sending an email out later this month about trying to get everybody to update their policy manual, because some of them have not been updated since 1999. Yes, it's true. It's bad. We need to make sure that these documents are actually reflective of our practices. Like I said, I'm a type A person, so it drives me nuts when I read something and it doesn't follow what we're actually doing. So I'm going to be looking to you all to help me make sure these documents are up to date. Not because I'm trying to pigeonhole you or any sort of negative reasoning. I just want to make sure that as this organization moves forward, that our policies are reflective of what we're actually doing, so that later down the road, you don't have to ask, who's on my policy committee? It's there. It's there. It's up to date. It's up to date. So we're trying to keep these up to date. We're trying to make sure that everything is current. Review them. Let us know any changes that you might make. I will be happy to post it on the webpage for you. Right now, the way most of the policy manuals are worded is that they have to be amended business meeting at Vision. So if there are changes you want to make, start thinking about that now. You also are responsible for leading your policy committee meetings and your region and division business meetings. So these are at Vision. You might have policy committee meetings via teleconference in between. You are the chair. You are the person who gets to set that agenda. You're the person who gets to lead the meeting and lead the discussions. Encourage you to take minutes. If you do take minutes from these meetings, please send them to us so that we have a record. Again, we need to make sure that we have a good history of what's going on within your regions and divisions. Please help us do that. We can also post that information online for you so that nothing gets lost. And online basically becomes an archive of sorts for us. As we discussed, if you don't really know what should we be talking about, what should we be doing on the agenda, use your fellow region and division vice presidents. They have great ideas. Some of them have been on, 2 years already. They have samples. There's samples in materials that you all received. We can help. Let us know how we can help. Budgeting, I'm not going to belabor this because I know Cora did an excellent job with this. I will reaffirm something I know she told you. Operating funds are use or lose. So if you don't use it, you don't get to keep it for next year. It's gone. We have a special policy about how we handle any surplus budget funds we receive. They go into reserves, etc. But if you have any leftover funds, it goes towards those types of initiatives. Again, designated, exists forever. Does not ebb or flow unless you take money out of it or put money in it, of course. But in terms of from year to year, it's the same. Communications, again, for your policy committee, please provide us with those minutes. Stay in contact with your policy committee members. Let us know who's on your policy committee. Send us those rosters so we can avoid these disaster type situations. Again, I mentioned this, we have a conference call line. I know Region 5, they have a set I think it's the first Wednesday of every month, they have a policy committee meeting. And they use our conference line. and it's a great way that works for them. So think if something like that might work for you. In here is, I did want to mention, in the past we did weekly reports, now we do something called monthly reports. These come from Leanne Wilson, our executive director, and it gives you a snapshot of what's going on in the association. Steve DeWitt will send you a weekly piece as well about policy information that's going on. We're up on the Hill every day. Things are happening on a policy level sometimes extremely quickly, so you'll get his email once a week. Feel free to share that information if you wish. The monthly report from Leanne is really a board-only type of piece, so we ask that you keep that internal because some of the information that she shares in that is sensitive at times. Again, I'm just going to really quickly go through the key points here. Communicate. Communicate, communicate. Let us help you. Tell us how we can help you. We want to help you. We want to make this experience rewarding for you. We want to make sure that you're empowered with the information that you need, with the resources that you need so that you can be the best region or division vice president that you can be. Let us know how we can help you. Communicate with your members. Communicate with your policy committee. Let them help you and rally around you to be a better leader for your constituency group as well. You're not alone. We're here with you as staff. Your policy committee is with you. We want to make sure that you are empowered and able to accomplish your goals for your region or your division and have great success. If you have any questions along the way, Kate is an awesome resource. She will be able to help you with any situation you might be facing. Serving on the board can be very serious, and sometimes we talk about issues that are very heavy and difficult, but it's also a lot of fun. I will tell you, I've been here 5 years. Working with the board is my favorite thing to do. So it was very difficult for me to give the board over to Kate. But Kate is doing an excellent job. But the board is fantastic. I have grown so much personally working with the board over the past 5 years as a leader. It's just phenomenal. The people that you're going to be able to have the opportunity to work with from across the nation is outstanding. So I really hope that this experience is not only, one that is perhaps challenging, but also fun and growing and a development opportunity for you as well. Okay? Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.